Very
Um,
nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you too. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I can't complain. It's another day that the Lord has blessed us with, and we're going to take advantage of it.
Yeah, cool. Well, so you're running to unseat Carol, is it Carol Miller?
Yes, ma'am. That's correct.
And what is your issue with her? What has she done that you're not happy about, or what is it you want to do differently?
She's very moderate. She's very meek. I don't think this is a time for weak politicians. Number one, I think we need some patriots in there who's willing to stand up and fight back against the tyranny we find ourselves living under on just a regular basis. But she voted to send billions and billions of our tax dollars to Ukraine. She voted to force our military members to receive the COVID vaccine if they wanted to continue their career in the military. She voted for the $1.5 trillion omnibus bill that included red flag gun laws and the Green New Deal and things of that nature. So, I mean, this is one of the reddest districts in the country, and our representation does not reflect that. And I'm excited to give the people in our district an opportunity to actually vote for someone in who represents their values.
Yeah. So I want to go back just a little bit to your history. You ran first for the House of Delegates in West Virginia as a Democrat.
Yep.
Then you lost. So then you ran as a Libertarian, and you lost. And then you ran as a Republican and you won, but you were only able to serve for 1 month because you were arrested on January 8th because of your participation in the January 6th Capitol protest. Well, I'm not going to call it an insurrection. So tell me a little bit about um, what happened January 6th, what your part was. And I know that you ended up pleading guilty to a felony. Just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I first want to kind of address the first part of that. I
Yeah.
was the first Republican to win my district in 98 years. So
Wow.
being a Republican in my area was not a popular thing at the time. I did it because to me it was the right thing to do, and that's where my values aligned.
Yeah.
And so I was, but in 2020, to your point, I was the first Republican to win my district in 98 years. I won in a landslide victory for the West Virginia State House. And then I went to the Capitol on January 6th to exercise my natural God-given rights of free speech, not only for myself, but to represent the roughly 50,000 people I had just been elected to represent in the West Virginia State House. And, I was peaceful, nonviolent, non-destructive. I was never accused of any violence or destruction. I didn't see any violence or destruction. It was by and large a peaceful, patriotic day. It's all on video. People can watch it for themselves. I walked through an open set of doors. I thanked a police officer for his service. The police officer gave me a friendly fist bump, inviting me into the building. I spent less than 10 minutes inside the public rotunda area, walked out the same set of doors I entered, and ultimately found myself in the crosshairs of the same weaponized deep state that's going after President Trump. They came to my house.
Right.
They ripped me away from my wife and my four young children and held me hostage as a political prisoner. To make a long story short, I was facing 24 years in prison. I had an 18-month legal battle. I did 3 months in federal prison, and I did 8 days of solitary confinement because I refused the COVID vaccine while they were holding me hostage. And now, to your point, I got out around this time last year, spent a little time with my family, and then quickly realized that we weren't really getting any help from the Republicans, and I don't feel most of them truly understand, or at least at the time did not understand how weaponized this government is against conservatives and against Christians in this country. And so I
Right.
decided, instead of running for my old seat in the state house, I was going to run for U.S. Congress because I'm going to take this battle to their front door the same way they brought it to mine.
Well, I applaud you for that, and I have some questions about the time you served. You served in was it in Michigan? Is that
Yes,
right?
ma'am. Yep.
Okay, in federal. Why would he not have been in D.C. with the rest of the J6?
So yeah, that's a good question. So early on, I was arrested January 8th, the very first day of January
Right.
6th arrest. 2 days after January 6th, I was arrested. In the early days of this, it was really a luck of a draw situation. So if you were arraigned and arrested in your hometown, in your home district, you had a chance of not getting sent to the DC gulag. You had a chance of that because it was going to be dependent on the federal magistrate that you went before. I live in a very red area. People understood. So I got out on bond. If you were someone in a blue area or in a very liberal judge, they would send you to DC, or later on, they started arraigning people because they wanted everybody sent to DC. They started are doing the arraignments and the arrests and everything through the DC office, which meant you went through it before a DC judge, which meant you were 100% going to be held in the DC gulag in pre-trial detention. Now, all those guys in the DC gulag, once they've been found guilty in front of a kangaroo court, in my opinion, but once they've been their sentencing or whatever has taken place for whatever reason, they are then moved to an actual federal prison somewhere, much like the place that I was held.
A lot of the people who were in the DC gulag have reported physical abuse, mental abuse, etc. And a lot of them have said that they were threatened and intimidated and told, you know, if you turn on Trump or whatever, then we'll let you off with a lighter sentence or something like that. Did you run into any of that? Did you feel like you were abused in any way? Well, I understand that the whole thing was ridiculous, but my question is, once you were in prison, were you treated fairly? Do you feel like you were?
Well, let me address the first part first, and I'm going to speak in generalities here. I don't know if I'm allowed to speak specifically
Okay.
to mine on that particular issue, but I do want to address. I think it's very important. I don't think enough people are speaking about this, so I'm glad you brought it up. Most J6ers, in some capacity, well, all of us have been overcharged, but most of us were offered much, 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 much lesser plea deals. But part of that plea deal would have been you saying that you didn't think the 2020 election was stolen and that you were wrong about that, and that you then blamed President Trump for
Mm.
your actions on that day. Most of the people have refused to do that because it's simply not true. And then they still take a plea deal later, but not as sweet of a plea deal as what they were originally offered. So,
Right.
like in my case, I was offered a plea deal early on to choose my misdemeanor. They dropped all the other charges against me, and then they withdrew that and refused to do that. And then I was hit with a 20-year felony. But in prison, it was hit or miss. Luckily for me, I was in Michigan. I mean, the two worst places for a January 6th political prisoner to be held is in the DC Gulag or the Northern Neck Regional Jail. Those are two terrible places for J6ers. Luckily, we got most of the guys out of there at this point. But in actual prison, there were a couple of guards who definitely were very liberal and hated President Trump, and therefore they hated me. And I remember I was trying to keep a low profile early on, and there were a couple guards who definitely made it known and put a target on my back as a result of that. But there were also other guards who would come up to me and say, "Hey, if I was allowed to, I would shake your hand right now. I can't. I just want you to know, we think this is BS. Keep your head down, get home to your family, and just know that we got your back in here," type of thing. But it opens up another can of worms. As a prisoner, you are an inmate just like everyone else, and so you can't be overly friendly with the guards. You can't be seen having private conversations with the guards, and so it kind of you got to walk that fine line of letting them know that you appreciate that and you support them, while at the same time understanding that you're an inmate just like everybody else and you don't want to get labeled as a snitch or something along those lines.
Well, you have 4 children. What are their ages?
So my oldest at the time of my arrest, my oldest was 5 years old. My oldest is now 7. She'll be 8 in February. So I got two girls that are 7 and 6, and then I got two boys that are ages 4 and 2.
Was this hard on them?
Absolutely. I mean, in some ways, it's fortunate that they were young, so we were able to protect their innocent minds from a lot of this, particularly with the media.
Mhm.
But they were traumatized for. I mean, honestly, they're probably. I would just say they're just now starting to get over that in terms of when the FBI raided her home and ripped me away, and then me being gone for months at a time, and they didn't understand. All they knew is dad who's here every single day is no longer here, and all they understood at the time is there's police officers to them, as FBI, but to them, the cops are here taking dad away. What's going on? And so it was absolutely traumatizing to them, and that's something that's got lost in the shuffle of all this January 6th stuff is the children and the families. And my thing to the left wing extremists out there is, look, you can hate me, you can think that I'm, dumb for believing everything that I believe in and all these things, but I think you should at least agree that I deserve due process, and so does every other person. They deserve, the constitutionally protected due process, and our children are still innocent in all of this. They don't deserve, some of the things that they've seen. We know that these federal agents have rolled into small communities with military tanks and knocked down doors and flashbanged innocent children and held them at gunpoint to go and arrest someone on some simple misdemeanor charges. That is absolutely ridiculous. And those children, think what you want to about myself and the other January 6th political prisoners. These children don't deserve to be put through that.
No,
Unfortunately, those people want us to be scared of them.
Yep.
That's the unfortunate thing. It's that's never been the case before. The government has always tried to hide the powers that it could deploy on you. You're very well spoken. What did you do before politics?
Well, I went to college and played football and ran track, and then from there, I was a educator for about 4 years and coached, high school football and everything. And then I quickly saw that education wasn't for me because I can't keep my mouth shut, and I saw a lot of the liberal stuff that was starting to be infiltrating our schools early on. My passion was always, I kind of discovered it late in college. I discovered a passion of real estate, and so I used, early on, my wife and I decided that when we first graduated, we are going to live off of one salary and pretend the other one wasn't working because we're already used to living off a college budget. We're going to save our money, and that way we could invest in real estate. So after about 4 years, I was able to start investing in real estate, and then that last year I kind of did both, and then I got into real estate full time around 2017ish, somewhere around in there. And so that's what we've been doing since then. Is, I flip homes, fix up rental property, manage the properties, all those things. So that's what I've been doing for the last roughly 6 years or so now. But I've always been passionate about helping my local community and everything, but now it's kind of turned into more of it's even worse. We've got to save our country. I don't think people understand the
yeah.
dire situation we find ourselves in.
Well, I
What?
wanted to can I ask? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, did you play football in high school? And you said you coached high school, but did you not coach college or
I did. Yep. So
Virginia
I was
Tech?
very blessed and fortunate. I was a first team All American defensive back in college, and then I was also all conference in track. And then from there, I came home. All I ever wanted to do was come back to my hometown. It's a small rural area in the coal fields that's been absolutely decimated by the war on coal from the first
Right. Yeah.
Obama terms. And so I wanted to get back to my community and come back and use um, I wanted to help other kids who loved football and loved sports in general, or and who wanted to use that as an avenue to go get a college degree or something the way that I did. I wanted to do that, and so I coached high school for some time, and had some buddies who coach college football, and they've been trying to get me to do it for a few years, and then had a really good opportunity that just fell into my lap. To be honest with you, coaching at a D1 school, and I was there, but I quickly realized this is not for me. I want to. I'm more of a family person, and there's not saying those guys aren't nothing like that, but all I've ever wanted to do was to be a good dad. Honestly, that's all I've ever really cared about in terms of that side of things, and I didn't want to miss out on my children's own events and
Right.
not being there, and so I gave that dream up so that I could be more of a full-time dad. And so that's the beauty of my job in real estate is, I set my own schedule. My wife is a nurse. She works 7 days on, 7 days off, basically. And so, the 7 days that she's on, she works 12-hour shifts. For all intents and purposes, I'm a single dad. I'm the one taking them to all their events and all those things. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
What college did you go to?
So I started off going to Marshall University in West Virginia, home of Randy Moss. And then from there, I ended up taking a year off, and then I finished up at a D2 school called West Liberty University. It's up near the Wheeling part of West Virginia, that little sliver between Ohio and Pennsylvania. And like I said, God's just been so blessed. I mean, I've just been so fortunate for the journey that I've taken to get to where I'm at today.
I thought he coached at Virginia Tech. I'm
I
sorry.
did.
See?
I did. Yeah, I coached it. That's where I had the opportunity to go coach, but I
Mhm.
gave that up because, like I said, it wasn't really for me and my family in that moment. I just couldn't see myself putting something above my family, my children, not even my career. And so, and I knew I had an opportunity to come back and really just focus on real estate and kind of have the best of both worlds. And so that's what I decided to do. I came back and put all my focus outside of my, in terms of my career, in terms of real estate, and just kind of doubled down on that. And I wouldn't trade it for the world.
So what's your status now as far as legally? You're
Well, I'm out of prison and I'm on, I got 2 years of probation left. So I've got 2 years where I still have to answer to this federal government. I have to check in every month. I have to request to travel, and just a lot of drug tests, all these things. So there's a lot still there, and in a lot of ways, I had more freedom in my pretrial detention than I have after getting out of prison. And so, but yeah, all of us are getting hit with probation. Here's the kicker: in the federal system, uh, regardless of what your charges are, they let you off probation early. And I mean, child molesters, that
Mm.
worst case, do 2/3 of their probation. Most people get off of probation after serving half of their time. When it comes to January 6th, they're not letting anyone off of probation early. Everyone is having to do the full amount of time. So rapists, murderers, child molesters are getting off of probation early. But if you peacefully protested on January 6th, no, you got to do the full amount.
And what is what is the exact charge? What did you plead guilty to? What is
I pled guilty to civil disorder.
okay.
I was originally charged with the 4 misdemeanors of basically trespassing and disorderly conduct. But when I refused to um, take their little sweetheart plea offer early on, they hit me with the 1512 obstruction of official proceeding, which is a 20-year felony. And the Supreme Court is actually in the process of hearing that particular charge right now. There's an appeal because it doesn't even pertain to January 6th. They just used that to and weaponized that charge against peaceful January 6th protesters to hold a 20-year felony over their head. And then they bankrupt you, and then you don't really have any other options at that point. And so I'm hoping and praying it doesn't help me. My stuff's already over with, but I'm hoping and praying that the Supreme Court gives the proper ruling on that so they can not continue holding that charge over the heads of other January 6th protesters in the future.
where is this going with the United States? What do you think these people are up to?
Well, I think that the biggest thing, as you said it earlier, they want everybody to be fearful. They wanted to use myself and the other January 6th political prisoners as an example and use us to put fear into the American people. So I always tell everyone, look, I can't get the time back with my family. I can't get back the memories that I missed out on. I can't get back on the money that we've lost or the emotional turmoil that my family went through. I can't get any of those things back. But what I can do is I can wake up every single day and I can refuse to allow them to use me as an example. So I travel the country and speak out about my experience and against the weaponization of government. Part of this is part of the reason I'm running for Congress as well. Is I want to show the American people that I'm just an average guy from Southern West Virginia. I took one on the chin from the most powerful, corrupt government in the history of the world. I got up, I dusted my britches off, and I said, you know what? I'm still standing and I'm still fighting to save this country. And if I can do that, anyone can do that. There's nothing to be afraid of. Because guess what? If you're a registered Republican, if you go to church, if you've ever engaged with a social media meme of some sort, you're already on a list. People are afraid of being put on this. You're already on a list. And I can tell you, my fear is not what they can do to me. I've already experienced pretty much everything they could do to me at this point. My fear is that our generation kicks this can down the road because we don't have the courage to fight back against this tyranny. And I'm 70 to 80 years old, and I'm watching my children and my grandchildren forced to to pick up the fight that I didn't have the courage to
Right.
do. And that's my biggest fear. So I'm going to fight it today and do everything I can to save this country.
You've mentioned God several times, so I'm assuming you're a person of faith.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it your faith that gives you the strength to do what you're doing? Did you feel like God was with you in prison?
Oh, 100%. I get chills thinking about it. I'm so blessed and so fortunate to have, been raised in part of the Bible Belt and raised in the faith. And obviously, just like everybody else, we go astray. And I found my way back, early on when I started having kids and everything, realizing the importance of all that. And
Right.
I'll tell you, in a weird way, I'm thankful for my time in solitary confinement. That's the closest I've ever been to God, and it's so much proof that you're never alone. I mean, if you've ever felt alone, you don't know what that feels like until you're sitting in solitary confinement with absolutely nothing in a small box and no concept of time or anything. Um, And when you're in that situation and you feel God and you feel God's presence and you know you're not alone, there's no words to describe just how amazing that feeling is. And it's made me a better person. Made me a better husband, made me a better father. And so I've always been taught to try to find the blessings and the beauty and the good in every situation, because believe it or not, there is good and positives in every situation if we look hard enough. And so I chose to do that during that time, and it was amazing.
Well, I want to assure you that you are an impressive person right now. You've been steeled for this time.
Such a time as this.
Yeah.
I'd like
Thank you.
My final question, and of course you probably have more, but I just want to ask, I want to give you an opportunity right now, right here, right now, to speak to the people of West Virginia and basically tell them why they should vote for you.
Yeah, well, I mean, as I said, this is one of the reddest districts in the entire country. This is not a purple district. We don't deserve a purple representative. We don't deserve a moderate representative. We're in a battle right now for the future of this country. This is not a time for weak politicians. This district is so red that we deserve a Matt Gaetz, a Marjorie Taylor Greene, a Lauren Boebert. We deserve that type of representative. And that's exactly what I've already brought to this table. And that's what I mean. Look, a lot of people talk about what they're going to do if they get elected, and they're all talk. And then when they finally get there, they just kind of cower around. Like, I was already an elected official, and I could have chose to do what everybody else across this country did on January 6th and just sent out fundraising emails and sat at home and did nothing. But I chose to go stand with the American people because it was the right thing to do. And that's exactly what I'll do. And I look forward to standing on the national stage beside of President Trump, not behind President Trump. I look forward to standing beside of him. He's taken enough of these arrows already. We need some people who's willing to stand there and take some of these arrows with him. So I look forward to standing on the national stage beside of President Trump and beating the drum of freedom, not only for my district here in West Virginia, but for every single God-fearing conservative across this country.
So well put.
Yeah.
Incredible. Do you have any sense of polling?
Polling?
Polling, yeah.
Yeah, we're great right now. We have the closest race in the entire country for someone who's challenging an incumbent in the primary. We have not spent a single dollar in our campaign yet, and we are polling. These are not my polls. These are not internal polls. These are public polls done by media groups and such. And we're polling at 45% against a 6-year incumbent Rhino.
And what, then she's 55%?
Yes, but we haven't spent a single dollar yet. It's absolutely fascinating. And when we do our own internal polling, our push polls, where we remind people, everybody knows the January 6th story here. I mean, it was all over the media for a year straight. The elected official going to prison for January 6th. When we do internal push polling, which is where we include, not just my name, but this is the guy who went to prison, a former elected official arrested for January 6th, Derek Evans. When we do that, we're beating her by around 11 points in the polls. And so all we got to do is raise the money to make sure that people, make that connection on election day, and we're going to win this race. And so we're really excited. We're very fortunate. We've got volunteers from all over the country who are phone banking for us and donating to our campaign. We've got over 4,000 American patriots across this country who've donated to our campaign so far. We're not backed by big pharma. We're not backed by the military industrial complex. We're not backed by any of these special interest groups. We're backed by the American people, because this is a race for the American people.
This is not the interview I expected we were going to have. It's great to know you.
Yes. And I
Thank you.
have a question for people in West Virginia or even outside of West Virginia who might want to donate to your campaign. What is your website?
Yeah, thank you. It's evansforwv.com. Evans, either the number 4 or FOR. We bought both domains, so it doesn't matter. evansforwv.com. You can go there on the homepage. There's a button that you can click that says donate. You can go there and look. Every little bit adds up. Like I said, our average donations, I think, like $50 or something like that. We got over 4,000 donors, and we're backed by the American people. I tell everyone, this is not just my campaign. If you are someone, it doesn't matter which part of the country you're living in, and you're frustrated not only with the Biden regime and what they're doing in this country, but you're frustrated with the do-nothing Republicans who don't have the courage to stand up and fight back on these issues. I've already proven that I'm willing to do that. You talk about sending a message to the establishment and to the elite in D.C. Right. We elected January 6th political prisoner. That's going to, backed by all of America, that's going to send the strongest message you could ever send. So I'd encourage you to do that. And then If you don't want to do that, you can click, there's a join our team. You can volunteer, you can phone bank or anything like that from all over the country. It doesn't matter where. And if you don't want to do any of those things, add us to your prayer list. This is spiritual warfare of good versus evil.
Right.
We need all the prayers we can get.
Absolutely. Is there anything else you want to add?
We'll do whatever we can to help you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Do you have any other questions?
Do you have anything else you'd like to say?
Yeah.
No, I think you guys covered all of it here. I appreciate you guys having me on. And, like I said, I just want to remind everybody we're in a battle for the future of this country. Yesterday, it was the January 6th political prisoners, such as myself. Today, they're going after President Trump, parents who speak out at school board meetings, pro-life sidewalk advocates. It doesn't matter. All conservatives, they've labeled MAGA as domestic terrorists. So if they get away with this today, then tomorrow they're going to come after every single conservative in this country. That's their end game. And we need more patriots to get involved in politics. We have too many politicians in politics. They got us in this mess. We need people who are not only willing to say these things, but to do these things and accept the consequences that come with that, because you don't stand up against this kind of tyranny and this kind of corruption without facing consequences. I've already done that, and I will continue to do that.
Good. Well, it's nice to meet you. We look
Very nice
forward to seeing your campaign grow and where it goes from here, and we will do whatever.
And of course, your election is next November.
Yes, but our primary is in May, and so May 14th, and it's one of the reddest districts in the country. So whoever wins our Republican primary will 100% win the general election. And so really the race for me is May 14th.
May 14th.
Oh,
correct.
so glad I asked that.
Yeah, me too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
we'll do whatever we can to help you.
Thank you guys so much. God bless you guys.